Hi, all, and welcome to a Terraverse's cybersecurity panel. I am thrilled today to be joined by three absolute cybersecurity luminaries who are going to walk you through a bit of their personal journeys, their sleepless nights as cybersecurity experts, and then give us all some advice on what we as IT professionals should be thinking about in the very fraught cyber landscape that is 2024. I'm Rachel Wilson. I've spent 25 years of my career in the cybersecurity space, 15 years at the National Security Agency, the NSA, including 5 years running NSA's cyber exploitation operations mission. And now I'm Morgan Stanley Wealth Management's head of data security and infrastructure risk. My job is to make sure that every system, every network, every application that we field to our financial advisors and our clients around the world is as time-tested, battle-hardened, and hacker-proofed as possible before we put that out there in the universe. And so I, just like all of you, am super excited about today's panel. I will be taking furious notes, so strap in, get ready. We have a lot of ground to cover today. So, Oren, I want to start with you. Can you introduce yourself and give us a little sense of what your day job looks like, your core responsibilities?
Thank you, Rachel. It's been a pleasure. My name is Oren Elimelech. I'm the CISO and the DPO for Atera in the last 3 years. I have an extensive background in cybersecurity. I used to work for the Israeli National Cyber Directorate for a few years. I was responsible for critical infrastructure for 8 years in transportation landscape, aviation. I worked with TSA. I still work with CISA and other worldwide organizations. I'm a researcher. I teach in the Technion High Institute for the last 20 years. I've taught over 1,500 CISOs. I've traveled around 60 countries, teaching worldwide, built national cert, security advisories. And pretty much this is what I do when I wake up and when I go to bed. I'm the trusted advisor for my dad and friends. So pretty much we all been there. And when I wake up in the morning, pretty much I'm responsible for making sure that the security at Atera is top notch. I need to be certain that the security for the production environment, the corporate IT and enterprise, the product and development, and also the production environment are all secured from threat actors, adversaries looking to make harm and abuse Atera. So thank you for the brief intro.
Thank you, Oren. Ryan, tell us about you.
Hi, and thank you so much for the opportunity to join. My name is Ryan Kazantian. I'm the CIO and CISO at Wiz, where I lead our security engineering, operations, risk, and compliance and IT teams. I joined Wiz 2 years ago when we were a much smaller company to establish and found and grow these functions to match the growth that we've been fortunate to have as a business. And I came here by way of a number of other security roles. Previously, I was a security engineering lead at Meta, formerly known as Facebook. Before that, the CTO of Tanium, an endpoint security company. And before that, as an incident response lead at Mandiant. And so I've been fortunate to get to wear a lot of different hats in security, risk, and IT, and looking forward to sharing more and talking with the group today.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And last but certainly not least, Itzik, tell us about you.
Hi, so nice to meet. My name is Itzik Tzalaf. I'm a National Security Officer at Microsoft Israel. I'm 10 years at Microsoft Israel, and Israeli obviously is one of the most challenged countries in the domain of cybersecurity. Therefore, for Microsoft, it's a unique opportunity to work and engage with the local market, like government agencies, regulators, strategic customers, and partners on cybersecurity. My role is more focused on cooperation around national security.
Wonderful. All right, so Oren, we're going to come back to you. You know, is the canonical question that all cybersecurity or experts are asked: what keeps you up at night? I'm going to ask all three of you gentlemen this question, but I want to know, Oren, not just the source of your sleepless nights, but the first thing you do when you come in the morning. What's that top priority, swallow the frog that you've got to get through?
Great question indeed. So first thing when I wake up is try to look at the phone, of course, to see that any threat, any exploit, something has gone wrong with our environment, our system, our customers. So pretty much, yes, I know that's not the best practice. I look at the emails, I look at my thread feeds, any anomalies, any Slack, any news that might come in need. And also I try to look at any new releases, like, security advisories, new CVs that might impact our environment. So pretty much that's what I do every day in the last few years. It's not the best thing, but that's what keeps me up, to make sure that, if something goes wrong, I'm the first to respond. If maybe I missed something during the night, but that's pretty much what I do when I wake up first thing in the morning.
All right, Oren. Well, I will tell you that makes me feel better that I'm not doing something dramatically wrong here, because I think my morning routine is quite like yours. So, Ryan, tell me about your nightmares last night. What were you losing sleep over?
I feel like I'm in a fortunate position to be a CIO and CISO of a security company. And with that comes a lot of benefits. We have security at our DNA, from our founders all the way through our leadership team. I think that's unique compared to CISOs in my position in other organizations that don't always have that same level of support. At the same time, we're also fortunate to be an extremely fast growing business that has pretty much 10x in every dimension in the 2 short years I've been here. And so on one dimension, our risk tolerance is low, and our standard for trust to protect our customers and the cloud environments that we protect for them is really, really high. And on the flip side, our risk tolerance in some dimensions is greater because we're growing very quickly. And as an agile startup, that's what you do. And so my job is to help enable the business wherever I can. And my sleepless nights come from trying to make sure that we are balancing the need for that agility with being careful and protecting ourselves and protecting our customers as part of that responsibility. Just as Oren said, my mornings typically do start with looking at my phone. I'm so fortunate to support a team of over 40 people, and so I have a lot of trust in our ability to scale and for them to extend and reach in places I can't. But looking at Slack and looking at my calendar is usually where I'm starting my day, and then I have a single running notes file. I've tried a lot of organizational methods over the years, and I found a single text file that I just perpetually update with to-dos and notes and action items, and it just grows and grows and grows, is where I keep my brain somewhat organized. And that's how I start off each day.
Ryan, I love that. Keeping it simple, that running notes file. Yes, I too have tried like every system under the sun, and I completely agree with you that that's the best approach. Okay, so Itzik, you're going to tell us that your mornings are something crazy now, right? You're doing something totally off the beaten path.
Well, since my role is a little bit different, because I'm again not the one that's responsible for the security in Microsoft, but more on the cyber relations with our clients. And as you know, as a leading tech vendors, there are always cybersecurity concerns and always cyber incidents that it makes my clients not to sleep in the night. So my morning is always started with following my email and my messages on the secure team channels with my clients, with concerns. As a tech vendor, there's always concern about new technologies that we are leading and the customers wants to embrace, and vulnerabilities that we are responsible for. So there's only the reactive part of the day, which is in the morning, to do follow-up and return as expected to our clients, and the second half of the day is more proactive, which working on new initiatives.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, so Oren, I want to change gears here. I want to talk about what you see as the biggest trend in the cybersecurity threat landscape in 2024. I've been telling all of our clients that for me, 2024 is the year of Russia, ransomware, and resilience. Those are my 3 R's. But tell me what you're seeing as the big trend.
Thank you. First, I agree with what you said. As I work and still cooperate with numerous groups from national security throughout the world, I pretty much can say, and also the position of Atera as a leading RMM and a PSA solution, we've been, scattered all over dozens, if not hundreds of countries with thousands of customers. So we have a lot of reach and capability. And we've seen a lot of threat actors during my time here in the last 3 years. So in my experience, and this encompasses my own personal view and here in Atera, first of all, I see that cyber attacks are growing immensely, all right? threat actors are becoming more and more sophisticated and agile, and this pretty much leads to new ways of attack and exploiting customers, whether that exploiting MSSPs and exploiting supply chain and third-party vendors. We've seen this happen a lot, and this pretty much I think is one of the biggest threats currently happening in this area. Also, to support this even more, we've seen the growth of AI pretty much. So generative AI and AI pretty much works for both sides, both for the red and both for the blue. So threat actors are actually using AI to make things much more easier. Okay, there's so many nice tools there, and I'm sure that my colleagues here will also appreciate and support this, that we've seen tools such as Warm AI and other tools that are not bound to any security limitations by ChatGPT or OpenAI, and they can pretty much do anything. So this lowers the sophistication, knowledge, expertise by threat actors. So newbies, kids, script kiddies can actually develop and run very advanced attack, where that's phishing attack that's looking very similar to land page and luring people to click a link or baiting phishing attacks, and also actually developing tools that are exploiting, published articles from GitHub and other known sources to have a certain ransomware attack that's very, very advanced. Also, we've seen, and you've mentioned it in your intro, that Russia targeted Ukraine pretty much. We've seen that, so nation state actors. But also, if you look at Israel, okay, doing what is happening, we've seen nation state exploit and take use of known tools and everything, and those nation state actually use other threat actors, whether that's financially driven, but when there's nothing to do, they're targeting and using their knowledge and the tools that they've used to target businesses and enterprise worldwide. And they're taking, no stops here, and they're targeting everything, whether that's using denial of service or IoT vulnerabilities, to make sure that they can pretty much get as much as they can. And I think the last step is cloud-based. In the last, years, we've seen cloud grow a lot. Here in Atera, we are supporting the cloud. We're a cloud-based solution in 100%, which is quite unique in our field. But threat actors are actually exploiting that people are not aware. And I'm opening up a door here for my colleague Ryan here, that are not familiar with all the capabilities of cloud features, identities, configuration, misconfiguration. And we've seen this happen a lot, and threat actors taking usage and exploiting cloud resources to make sure that they have cyber attacks driven from the cloud. So this is what I think is happening, and these are the main threats in this area.
No, I mean, Oren, totally agree with you. I mean, I think we're all seeing that the proliferation of AI is lowering the barrier to entry, increasing the scope, scale, velocity of the attacks that we're seeing. And certainly the cloud introduces risk, which, of course, Ryan, we all want to pick your brain on this. What are the trends that you're seeing specifically in the cloud space?
Sure, and thanks for teeing that up. I'll first say that I think on the whole, organizations that are now today building first from the cloud, like if you're a startup today, you're not building a data center, you're deploying in the cloud from day one, are in a much better position than organizations were a decade or two ago. The maturity of cloud services, everything from documentation to design and support, is so far above and beyond where we were a decade or two ago, where people in all walks of businesses were somehow expected to manage and run their own infrastructure. So we're in a much better place, and having seen the trajectory of incidents and breaches over the last 20 years, I definitely appreciate that. But as you both said, you're exactly right that the speed at which organizations are adopting and building in the cloud, and the ease with which developers can spin up infrastructure, pull in software, pull in services, and start running, they're both an accelerant to the business, which is great, but also a challenge for security and manageability, because it introduces a lot of attack surface, a lot of configuration, a lot of things that have to be brought under control very quickly. And so the prevailing challenge for IT and security teams is to keep up with how quickly your developers can and want to spin up those services. And I think The proliferation of AI-based services in public cloud is a great example of this. We did a research study earlier this year and saw that in just about a little over a year, close to 75% of our customers were deploying and using cloud-based AI services in their infrastructure in some capacity. And to go from 0 to 70 or 80% in the matter of 12 months is probably a faster adoption curve than practically any other technology that we've ever seen. And the same will be true for whatever comes next, it's service on a tap. And so, yeah, this is the interesting challenge for security teams and DevOps teams and IT teams to work efficiently with developers, efficiently across organizational units to say, look, like the reality is the business wants to be able to make use of these services because it makes their products better, it makes their services better, it helps them move faster. So security, like, help us use this efficiently, help us build guardrails so that security is not always in the way of us moving quickly, but we can remain safe. And I think that's the exact balance organizations are trying to strike, and why they're working with businesses like Wiz and other security companies to try to help them.
I mean, Ryan, totally agree with you. You know, we joke amongst the Morgan Stanley cybersecurity teams that we've really just become configuration managers, that your modern day cyber expert is really just in the configuration management business. But the balance you're describing just so resonates. And I have to imagine in your space, moving as fast, growing as quickly, you're walking a tightrope every day. Everybody wants a piece. So Itzik, what would you add to this? Like, from your perspective, what are the trends that you are seeing, and you know, what advice would you have to global CISOs today trying to deal with this environment? Oh, Itzik, we don't hear you.
Sorry, I'm very aligned with what Oren and Ryan say. The rise of the increase of nation state sponsor attack, even through cybercrime groups, the growing of generative AI, supply chain attack, and the growth of cloud embrace, which we see a lot of new CSPM cloud security posture management companies. I'll add to this discussion the influence operations, which is we see a hype of growing in those type of attack, which is usually attacks that are targeting and influence audience specifically. Let's take examples. This year there's an election in United States, so we see a lot of threat actors, a lot of nations trying to influence on the elections through let's say Facebook, Twitter, and a lot of social media way. But there's also using cyber attacks to influence on our operation. For example, to do cyber attack not just from cybercrime or destructive attacks, but also, you know, raise some inconvenience and the trust that the population have on the government or the specific areas. So we see a grow, I think, last year and also this year in cyber attack that relate to influence operations.
I mean, Itzik, totally agree with you. And I think what you guys have collectively said, you know, what we're seeing now, you know, 70% of the malicious cyber activity that we see on the internet, criminally motivated, financial in nature. You know, again, not to say that those nation state cyber activities have relaxed at all. They are at the highest levels we've ever seen. But we're really seeing that they're now dwarfed by misinformation, disinformation, financially motivated criminal attacks. And your point around, you know, social engineering and human influence are key, which, Oren, is where I want to go next. You know, it's that human factor. You know, I tell my employees all the time that they're both my greatest point of weakness and my first line of defense in everything that we're doing. So what are you thinking? What are you doing about that human factor when it comes to security?
So I totally agree with you. As I've mentioned earlier, I've been teaching cybersecurity for 20 years. I'm a fellow researcher in Orechman, IDC, ICT here in Herzliya, but also in Technion for the last 20 years. So I totally believe that, you know, people are the weakest link, okay? And I call them like the human firewall because they are the gatekeepers that need to be aware. I can put as much as technology as I want, but still somebody needs to click something, open up an attachment, or put his credentials. So we need to educate this. But as you've mentioned earlier, and you were smart about this, is we need people. So there's a big gap, okay, here to develop the skill set to have practitioners, security practitioner, analysts, professionals that can work and protect from our adversaries. So yes, I'm doing my own fulfillment here in teaching, but I think that AI will help us alleviate some of this concern because it helps shorten this gap, the same way that it teaches the threat actors how to do more sophisticated attack. It can actually help, the security teams to answer security gaps, problems, correlate a lot of information much more quickly, and take out labor-intensive and time-consuming security function, and allowing us to respond much quicker. And when we respond quicker to cyber attack, the impact is much smaller, and thus we can help the business stay more secure. So I believe that AI is one of the answers. It's not the complete answer for everything, okay? It's not the holy grail in my perspective, but it can also help in this way and address some of the challenges. But AI, and I think that, CSPM, same as Wiz and other solution, can also address such challenges of knowledge, because you need to have professional. And you can have a cloud solution with 600 different identities, possibilities, and configuration and everything. And that is, a mixture of many things that can go wrong in misconfiguration. So AI can help us, find the gaps in having proper cyber hygiene, cyber defense capabilities, and improve on that. So this helps us in both ways. So I believe if we educate both the practitioners and the users and the usage of AI, this creates like a triangle of improving both the security posture for the infrastructure application, the knowledge, and also for the people, and making sure that they're more aware of security breaches and becoming a true human firewall.
Oren, I love that. Ryan, I want your perspective on the human factor, and I want you to think about, all of the places you've been, Mandiant in terms of that response, your time at Facebook, all of these roles that you've had. Where do you see the human factor as being most crucial?
So I completely agree with Oren that you can think of awareness as a sort of firewall, but my belief is that it needs to be your last line of defense, and that in many cases, organizations rely too heavily on expectations for users that are just misplaced and avoidable. The best example I can provide on this is credential phishing. If you look at ransomware incidents over the last 5 years, over 90% of them started with credential phishing. Credential phishing is largely a solved problem with FIDO2 multi-factor authentication, where you have a phishing-proof credential, hardware bound, that cannot be intercepted by an attacker. The protocol was designed around this. Deploying FIDO2 across an organization can be challenging. I've seen it done in 2 organizations now, but it works. Google has been using FIDO2 auth for all their employees for almost the past decade, and they've publicly reported that they've had 0 instances of credential phishing. Google is a major target. For them to be able to posture that after making this change, they have had 0 instances of credential phishing is meaningful, and it resonates with any other organization that's done this. Now, this is one example of a control. It's not a panacea, but when I work with teams across, let's say, Wiz today, I can't tell employees, don't click on links from sources you don't know, or don't open attachments. If you're in a sales role or customer success and you're working with prospects and customers, your day-to-day job is interacting with people you don't know well, messages from Providence that you can't always validate, and links and files that you can't always be certain are right. And so I think it's security teams' jobs to make every use possible of guardrails and technologies that exist so that people can just focus on doing their jobs and not feel like they're one click away from dooming their company with some sort of existential breach because they did the wrong thing. It's a lot of stress for a non-security person to carry with them as they try to do their day job. And I think a lot of security teams would benefit from leaning into prevention a little harder. and finding those 2 or 3 areas within their organizations that can cut off entire avenues of attack and make it easier for employees to do their jobs without always having to worry about preventable security issues.
Ryan, I so agree with you. I tell my team all the time that our job is to make doing the right thing as easy as possible and to make the wrong thing as hard as possible. And if we do that, we're facilitating the business, we're reducing risk, we're reducing that human factor. So totally agree with you. Ryan, I want to stay with you for a second because Oren raised a really good point around, the dearth of cybersecurity expertise that we see globally right now. I think the metric is something like 800,000 open cybersecurity positions, just in the United States alone right now. Now, when I came to Morgan Stanley, I cheated, right? I just hired a bunch of my former peers and colleagues from the NSA. But for someone who doesn't have that kind of built-in network, what advice would you give to IT professionals that want to be in the cybersecurity space, recognizing that we need people and that maybe we've had a pretty narrow thought process on like who our burgeoning cyber professionals could be? What advice would you give?
So I'd say to the IT professionals, realize the opportunity is there and that the skills transfer is easier than you might expect. I especially find this to be the case for IT engineers transferring over into the corporate security, endpoint security space, and for people in SRE or DevOps type positions transitioning into the product and production security space. In fact, some of the best security people I've worked with have come from those backgrounds. And it's because their day jobs, even before they go into security, are very similar. That it's just instead of necessarily building resilience against a malicious actor, you're building resilience against other types of incidents, outages, human errors, unexpected issues that bring systems down. And so you find that a lot of muscle memory, and in some cases, even more process maturity exists in those disciplines because they predate the equivalent security functions. The same thing I would say for security leaders is to have an open mind about bringing people into those roles. Sometimes it can feel like a risk to not bring in someone that has that decade of security experience on their resume. But if you look at the types of engineering work they've done, the types of systems they've processed or supported, there's often a very good equivalence, and it's a smooth ramp into security as long as you're willing to give them that mentorship and support. And so I think that's a really good way to help manage against this skill shortage and bring IT and DevOps teams together with security more closely.
Ryan, totally agree. So, Itzik, I want your perspective on all of this. So, what you see in terms of the skill gap and how we can bring more people into this space, what advice you would give people, and then what your thinking is on the human factor. I mean, as we've discussed, so many of the breaches that we've seen, over the last few months, your head is in your hands going, how could they have been so dumb? And yet here we are. So what do you think?
Yeah. So I will start with the human factor because the human factor is the ones that press on the keyboard, and we will always have the human factor. So I think there's 3 areas that the organization needs to invest in the human factor. First is awareness, and not just to do training. The CISOs and the IT managers should combine in the security tools, also tools for attack simulation and campaign simulation to train the employee how they receive a phishing email or how they're being attacked. And I can say that inside Microsoft, we're doing it a lot, and definitely this is raising the awareness among the employees. The second area is to move for automation. Moving for automation is reducing dramatically the dependency on manually operation and in high privileges activity. So this is reducing the surface attack. I need less and less more DevOps and admins that actually exposing their high privileges credentials. And then less relying on the human factor. So definitely moving to automation is the second one. And the third thing is, again, we will always have attacks and always have attacks that comes from the human factor. So I need to definitely build my cybersecurity strategy with a fast way to contain event, because we will always have an event. And the way that we want to shape our cybersecurity strategy is how to contain the event very fast. For example, to do a very strict segmentation between my user environment, my IT user environment, which is my IT and office users with surfing the internet, receiving mailing, and exposing to all the cyber threats, between the other sensitive environment, the development environment, the test, and the production environment. And today it's very difficult way to do it because everyone wants that their developers will be accessible to all the Git repositories and to all the LLMs that offering automation and code producing. And the other hand, they're also exposed for social engineering in those platforms. So investing in containing an event and segmentation between those area, I think this is the other thing that organization needs to invest. And for your first question about skilling is very crucial because the world just become more and more relying on software and computer and services. And an organization today are more and more rely on vendors and services. And cybersecurity is definitely one of the most growing proficiencies that we are relying on. And I think it should be started from the school and then from the universities. And it's, as a person, it's very difficult to us to do a change in our career from being a lawyer or economist to start to work on cybersecurity. So I think it should start it from the beginning, from school, from university, and also employees that are near cybersecurity, like you mentioned, in IT professionals or even architects or developers. So I think from the economy perspectives, we know that to be on the cybersecurity area, it's like a job security. But again, there is a lot of pressure, a lot of nights that we are staying awake. So I think it's like a balancing way to create a motivation from what we have today on a workforce, and also to start investing in schools and universities on the cybersecurity.
Itzik, I love this. Although I would tell you, my kids watching me these last 20 years, I think I have sworn them off of any cybersecurity future. They have no interest in mommy's sleepless nights in this job.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. So I just want to add something like of an insight that I have that after hearing both Itzik and Ryan. I think that another way to approach this is having, bring in management and have them buy in by doing, for example, cyber exercises, building the capabilities, not only to the workforce of the security in the IT and the DevOps and the SRE, but if I involve senior management, board of directors, and I do a cyber exercise, a real cyber exercise, both in terms of a war game, a TTX tabletop exercise, but also technology-wise, management buys in, and they're much more supportive. They're actually will provide you more budget, more support, and actually people are more involved throughout the company. And actually also bringing somebody from the outside. So I've done this several times, and it's always a win. And it also improves the capability against of a cyber attack. As we all know, it's only a matter of time, okay? You're gonna get hit, and the question is how bad? And so this also provides you with the adequacy of being more resilient, but also gives you buy-in of the entire company and also from the outside. So this also expands the knowledge because I've had people coming from IT, as Ryan mentioned, and SRE saying, I want to be more involved. I had a DevOps come and says, I want to move to security. I want to be more involved. I want to be in the next cyber breach. I'm care for this. And it's quite interesting. So this is my 2 cents to add to this.
I mean, Oren, it is such a good point. And I think all of us would agree, having senior leadership, your entire C-suite be involved, I mean, at least on an annual basis with some kind of exercise. All too often, the C-suite sees cybersecurity as like the CISO's problem, the IT department's problem, not recognizing when their cyber bad day emerges, your CFO is going to be the one to decide whether you pay that ransom. Your board of directors is going to be involved in your whole corporate communication strategy. Your CEO is going to have to make a lot of decisions about regulatory advisement and customer advisement. Do they all see their role? When, to the point you made, Itzik, this is not an if, it's a when. So I think all the points you're making here are really, really crucial. Now, we have all three of you have mentioned AI, and I want to come back and really hit this point. So, Oren, when you think about this, benefits to the offense, certainly. Implications, and frankly, I think real obligations to those of us playing defense to be leveraging AI in a positive way for all of us. And then the point you made earlier, Oren, that this has the potential to automate a whole bunch of that rote incident response work, taking, what we all want, 95% of those tickets off of the back of our SOC. What's your overarching view? And I want all three of you to comment on this, on the pluses and minuses, the implications of AI in the cybersecurity space.
Amazing question. Thank you, Rachel. So I think that, AI has exploded, and, Ryan gave a perfect example of how many companies have adopted in such a short time of 12 months. So we've seen it happening worldwide. And I think that, currently, and I'm looking at my perspective and I'm working with other CISOs, it's much harder for us to adopt AI in terms of security as a preventive and security-wise than for threat actors. So we're definitely seeing an uneven match here, but I think it's going to change. It's going to shift as much as companies are adopting more and more security-focused companies are using this, because currently there's a gap, because every user can open up a browser, download a Python, a PowerShell, go to and have an account. And there's so many capabilities that can be exploited in this way. So there's not many tools out there to protect against the common user being exploited. And if you would just think about combining a phishing attack with a sophisticated threat actor, with an innocent user that have the capabilities to run anything in this manner, then it explodes. So definitely there's an uneven match here. But I think that, looking at this, the AI can definitely improve. For example, in Atera, we are using AI to support the IT capabilities, both in our MM and PSA, making sure that, these gap of skill set for IT professional is much being handled in a much more sophisticated manner, and making sure that, security, automation tasks that are repetitive and are actually more, labor intensive are being handled, and also thinking about alerts in this manner, taking that out of the equation and seeing that if you have a repetitive alert, we're able to, see the trend here and offer a solution in this regard. So definitely, I think AI has this capability to alleviate some of the concerns and automate some of these gaps, as I've mentioned earlier, for both skill set and talents in this regards. That's why I see it. Thank you.
No, Oren, I love that. And, this is exactly what I'm telling my SOC all the time. If you guys have done the same thing twice, let's automate that, right? So we're not doing it again. Ryan, what is AI going to mean in your world? Good, bad, otherwise? Tell us what you think.
Yeah, my sentiment is we're rapidly careening towards the using Gartner's hype cycle, the trough of disillusionment, in learning what the current generation of LLM supported AI technologies are and are not good at. From the attack perspective, I think there was a lot of alarmist coverage that speculated that LLM technologies would lead to a mass proliferation of attacks and lower the bar such that attacks became far more accessible. And that has not happened. In fact, Verizon just released their annual data breach investigation report that they do each year, and had a specific section calling out that AI-enabled attacks are basically a non-measurable blip. And part of the reason for that is it turns out phishing and some of the other techniques work really well already. We see it every day when every ransomware victim comes out with the next incident. So it hasn't even been a necessary function. Same for software exploitation. I'm no question attackers are learning to use LLMs to help accelerate exploit discovery, but it's not the sole way it's happening. And in fact, it's not the majority of the way that it's happening with most research. That said, like I do think there's some interesting areas of risk that it creates. The first is that as businesses, especially in the technology space, experiment with using AI services to make their products better, that is leading them to build new data pipelines and new data stores to take user data, to take production data, and test and evaluate and develop it against these services. And that the mechanics of that, of actually creating new data stores and new data pipelines to test and evaluate and use these services, opens up risk because you're extending the attack surface. And it's not just that it's for an AI service, it's the fact that you're moving data, especially customer production data, into these new environments that need to be managed and protected. And that's often where mistakes start to happen and where you will see like breaches start to surface from where those environments are not properly guarded. And that's especially true in cloud environments, as I said earlier, where it's so easy to spin up one of these cloud native AI services and start experimenting. On the corporate side, I think the key thing is for security and IT leaders to meet their employees and teams in the middle and understand that if you just try to reject outright every third-party service, then people will work around you. They'll stop asking for permission. And so I think there's a lot of merit in working with teams to understand when they're looking at AI-enabled services or products, what the use cases are and what they're trying to do, and then try to come together and provide a secure and supported solution that is endorsed by the company to minimize the fact that otherwise people will go off and do their own thing. And this isn't just for AI. This has been true for shadow IT as long as it's been a thing. And so the good news is, as expected, businesses have quickly learned that they can monetize AI features. And so I remember like a year ago, ChatGPT came out and all of these little startups spun up to say, here's security over ChatGPT to protect your employees' usage of it. And then, of course, all of the businesses providing ChatGPT and services like that built enterprise offerings with much higher per user fees per year, where they have like security by default and more configuration and management and better data privacy commitments. And so then again, it's just a matter of like understanding your org's risk tolerance, finding a good solution that meets the team's needs, and then helping your teams make use of that so that they don't feel compelled to go and find their own solution.
Nice.
I mean, Ryan, I couldn't agree with you more strenuously. And in fact, this is exactly the conversation that I've been having with our board of directors, which is, third-party risk is probably the thing that keeps me up most at night. There's like the domain I can control, and then there's rest of world. But trying to pretend that rest of world isn't there and that our employees don't need that to be effective, that is a losing proposition. And so how do we embrace that? How do we put guardrails around that? How do we push our business users to do, again, the right thing, the endorsed thing? Because if we don't, if we're in denial about this, it'll be shadow IT on steroids at the software level beyond all imagination. And I think that's the difference. If you think about those who were in our jobs 10 years ago, we were the house of no, and now we can't afford to be that anymore. So Itzik, tell us what you think about all this. We're about to wrap up, but I really want your thoughts. All of this space, AI, third-party risk. How do we take care, enable our businesses while at the same time not getting fired? Because we all know as CISOs, like our lifespan, can be pretty darn short.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. And I, in the AI domain, I want to focus on the generative AI because I think for the first time in a long time, there is a chance of changing the paradigm between the attacker and defender. So till today, we push, more security tools backed by AI. We train a lot of models regarding attacks. And from the other end, we have more and more sophisticated attacks that invent new patterns of attacks. And on top of all of that, we have the same workforce. So the AI didn't change the balance. So and now in generative AI, it brings new capabilities that may change those paradigm. For example, if I will train my generative AI, let's say create an LLM, a large language model that understand what is a cyber kill chain. Okay, so the cyber kill chain didn't change in the last 15 years. The attacks are changing the patterns, but still they're using the same stages on the cyber kill chain. So if my a generative AI will be able to recognize what is exploitation, what is reconnaissance. It will be able to help me and provide me advanced capabilities for threat detection, automated responses, and overall system resilience. And I think the AI role in cybersecurity is twofold. It's definitely strengthened our defense mechanism, involves our strategies to be more proactive than reactive. And by integrating AI into our cybersecurity framework, we can ensure faster and more accurate detection, prevention, and response to cyber attack. And this is crucial in managing an increasing complexity and volume of cyber attacks.
Love it. All right, guys, I'm going to ask you one last question, and it is kind of the million-dollar question for those of us in this space. Now, of course, Oren, you're cheating a little bit in this space, given that you are at Atera. But tell me about your relationship with the board of directors. You know, all of us as CISOs, I think, are trying to constantly educate and inform. We need what we need. We need that support. How do you make that work?
So I'm lucky that I know the CEO personally. I was hired by him. So I have a direct reach to him. I see him every day. I have a direct approach, and he's very, very security driven. I highly appreciate that in Atera and the way that I can, pretty much get the support that I need. And yes, I've met with the board several times when they were here and also when I got hired. So if there's any problem or risks, they want to know, and they were aware of this. And it's important. And we are having security cadence meeting every few months to make sure that everybody's up to date, up to speed on current threats, attacks, how to improve both in the security for the development, the production environment, the product. So I'm highly involved also, not only in the corporate side, but also in the actual product, which is actually the most interesting part in my job and role, making sure that the product is much more resilient, more secure, more hacker-proof. Okay, I'll use this word to make sure that it's less sexy in terms of hackers, and ensuring that we're fighting the game here of our threat actors in a much more sophisticated way.
All right, Ryan, I know I've got to let you go soon, but you've seen this from lots of vantage points, and yes, you're in a great spot now, but I'll tell you, when I took this job, sort of in the throes of shadow brokers, my board was not excited about hearing that we needed to reboot every machine in the firm in the middle of the trading day. So how do you handle those kinds of conversations?
Yeah, I feel fortunate that not only do we have a group of founders that all come from a security background, but also many board members that do as well, like Emily Heath with CyberStarts, who is formerly CISO of DocuSign, or Shardru Shal, who also has a deep background in cloud and security. But that certainly helps. Like, I think overall, you're finding more and more boards have one or more members that bring that cybersecurity background, and that helps shape the conversation. I do think for a CISO presenting to the board, it's all about prioritization and not overwhelming them with detail on here's a laundry list of risks and not enough on what we need from you. The most important thing is, if you're using board's time, it needs to be with a call to action or a request for support from the business. And that may be tolerance for something that affects the velocity or something that just changes the risk calculus for a business decision. That perspective and keeping it focused on the big things is, I think, where CISOs can find the most impact when they have a seat at that table.
Love it. All right, bring us home, Itzik. What advice do you have for all the CISOs out there that are trying to get leverage with their boards?
Yeah. So since again, I'm most on the field and in touch with our customers, I at least find myself more and more in discussions with boards, with C-level, about discussion about how to strengthen the cybersecurity posture. And again, it's discussion with the board and not with the IT or with the CISO. It's more, a risk management. And I think that this discussion is definitely, if we talked before about awareness in our employees. So I think in the last years that definitely more awareness in the board and in the management, and they definitely demand it also from their vendor, and they ask their vendor to present to the board and to the management how the vendors see the protection on top of his platform, and how, again, it's all a shared responsibility, the vendors and the customers, how we face for the same issues and how we are managing the risk together.
Guys, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for coming together with me today. And team, enjoy the rest of Ataraverse. You've got a lot of great content over these days. Again, huge thank you and wonderful content today. All right, all, be well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Keep safe.